Hi, I'm Michael Burgio.
And I'm Amano Lassie.
We work in the commercial leasing department at Novak Properties, and we thought we'd give you some quick tips on what commercial property is and the steps to leasing a commercial property. But first of all, what types of commercial properties are there?
So guys, currently on the market, there are around 725 properties on the market in the Northern Beaches area, almost 20% up from 2 years ago. This means it's a great time to start looking and see what's what. So currently here at Novak, we have plenty of stuff going from retail shops, which kind of frontline your Pittwater Road, straight to warehouses in the heart of Brookvale, Cromer, and even office suites that kind of double up on the top of those retail spaces.
The first step I would suggest is contact your local agent, Northern Beaches, contact us, and go see a property. Because a lot of the time we get briefs from tenants or prospective tenants on what they believe they need for their business. And until we go meet them at a property, a real life example, what I find is it doesn't always match. And then once we've shown them 5 or 6, 7 properties, when you look at the property they ended up leasing to the description they gave at the beginning of what they thought they needed or perceived what they thought was what online, they're generally two totally different things. So the best way to sort of speed that up and that education process is call us. We'll show you 5, 10, 15 properties. We're very fortunate where we've got over 100 commercial properties available, so we can show you that variety of properties so you can know what will tick the boxes for your business. Once you've found a property that you like, what's next? You make an offer. An offer can have, unlike residential, where you're generally only negotiating rent and a 6 or 12-month lease, a commercial lease can have about 10 components, and any of them can break a deal or make a deal. So what would be some of those key components in a lease offer?
So guys, we've got around 10 proper terms that we need to run through before we get offered to an owner. Some of those include things like rent. Does it include GST, exclude GST? Is it on the market, below market, or above the market? Where are we sitting with the rent? And then how we can go forward with that one. So do you also have outgoings on top of that or not?
Because what are outgoings? What can they be?
Outgoings can run from water rates, council rates, land tax, and it was
agent fees, waste. Yeah. And sometimes you may look at a property or see it online that it says 30 grand a year plus outgoings. Outgoings can be 5, 10, 15, $20,000 on top of that. So a super important thing is to define if the rent you're looking at or your offer is including outgoings or plus outgoings.
Yeah, definitely.
What else?
And it really breaks down that kind of price margin of what you can and cannot look at in terms of property. Some other things include how long you're looking at taking the property for. So in residential, we see a lot of 6 months to 1 year.
Yes.
In commercial, we almost deal with 3 to 10 year leases sometimes.
Huge.
So it's a crazy amount of time that we're looking at here, which can really impact on the property and what the landlord wants to do with that property.
And the main things to look for when you're deciding that term is, as much as it's in the landlord's best interest, it's also in your best interest. It's tenure, it's security. And we do generally see longer terms when you've got a bit more of an input into your fit out. So for example, if you're doing a cafe restaurant and you're spending $300,000 on your fit out, you're not going to be, well, ideally, you're probably going to want longer than a 1 year lease. Because what that means is you'll spend $300,000 on your fit out, and in 12 months, you could be kicked out. I don't know about most businesses, but you're generally not going to recoup your fit out cost within 12 months. So that style of business, when you've got a significant input in the fit out, you're going to want a 3, 5, 10 year commitment from the owner and that security in there. But when we see a bit of shorter leases would be, say, an office or maybe a retail shop.
More the things like offices, medical suites, potentially even beauty salons, where they can take a 1 year lease and then upgrade to a bigger one if the business is growing.
Big factor to look at is where your business is at and where you see it in 2, 3, 4 years time. Because if you've already, we had a gym where they've upgraded 3 times and they were taking shorter leases. They were factoring in, yes, they were doing the fit out cost, but the business was growing and growing. So you need to also look at that as well. But I wouldn't stress too much on that, because as much as you can always break the lease. And what I mean by that is, if you've signed a 5 year lease and you've outgrown it within 2.5 years, you can always engage us again and we can find a new tenant and replace you with the landlord's consent as well. So I would almost err on the side of caution of having a longer lease with the ability to get out knowing that, because I've just seen it get a little messy where you've got a booming business, you've only done a couple-year lease, the landlord may see it's a booming business, or there's no other empty shops, the market can go up, the rents go up, or you're left without a shop. And therefore, getting that longer lease to have your business in the area would be very, very important.
100%.
What else?
Michael, with every year that you go on, we do have things called percentage increases or annual reviews.
Yep.
Now, these things can take, most of our landlords are looking at that 4% to 5% range, which you're
As you would, all landlords want the most.
Exactly, always. But that's that 4%, 5% increase every year on your rent.
Yep.
Not necessarily on outgoing sometimes, but definitely
generally on the rent. And as tenants, you guys want the lease, so you always look for that CPI or 3%. So it's normal to have an agreement of 3 to 4% a year on increases.
Definitely.
All those parts, they form an agreement called a heads of agreement, a term sheet, a deal sheet. Different people use different names. They're all the same thing. That's what you need to put out to the landlord, and also assess yourself. And if you're a tenant, that's the format you should be running off with your offer, because you may make an offer to the owner and then you get something back which the rent may be what you want, but you don't have a long lease. You're paying the outgoings, your increases are high. So you need to assess all those points before really entering a lease agreement. Once you've got all that agreed, then that's the heads of agreement executed. You sign it, the landlord signs it, you pay a holding deposit. This is generally 1 month.
Definitely.
Then the lease will be sent to the solicitor, or an agent can do in-house as well. And that's when your lawyer would review the terminology in the lease, because a heads of agreement is just basically the bullet points of the deal, and then a lease document will be issued. That generally happens within the week, and the lawyer can get it done pretty quickly.
Now, after that, we take our bond. So obviously that's just in security of the property for the landlord and all that.
And how long is normally a bond?
Look, they range from around 2 to 3 months.
Yep.
So
held in trust, so that can be held, if it's a retail shop, gets held in the retail bond board. If it's commercial or office, it can be held via the owner's trust account, or we like to hold it in our Westpac trust account as well.
now after that, final inspections, see everything's good.
Yes.
And then on the commencement of the lease date, happy to hand over keys and get your business started up.
Yeah, so key things to basically, before you move in, you need the heads of agreement signed, the lease signed, holding deposit, the 3-month bond. You need your public liability insurance and plate glass insurance, and also an ingoing inspection, because the key thing to look at when you're doing a commercial lease is the make good. If you're getting an empty shell and then you're spending 200 grand on the fit out, you want to know how you have to leave it. You want that very clear most of the time, and it's quite normal to have to remove everything once you leave, because even though what your fit out has may added value to the next tenant, it may not, and most landlords just want it brought back to a clean state of how you brought into it. I think and then you can start operating and making money.
100%.
So that's sort of our tips guide for leasing a property. Any further questions or assistance, we're happy to help. We're happy to act on your behalf. We're happy to show you half a dozen properties or more, share rental per square metre rates. We're here to help. Give us a call. Thank you.